Hello people, I am a person. So, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is just a few months from release.
I promise this isn't the only thing I'll ever talk about, it's just what's relevant right now.
And believe me, I'm excited.
Especially since I moved to Costa Rica this month so I get to see it a week early.
Yeah!
Well, let me just rip the band-aid off. You know why we're here. Everyone's got a bone to pick with Chris Pratt's Mario voice. However, I'm here to tell you why it is so much better than we give it credit for. In fact, after this video, I'm sure you'll be convinced that it's not only better than you think, but it's actually a good pick, unless you're too upset it isn't Charles Martinet. Now, I do love Charles's voice, and I could praise him all day, but this is a video about Chris Pratt.
Insert poorly animated intro here.
Hey, so real quick, some of you may have noticed I had a slight name change. Originally I was just Colton K, but I think Colton's Cartoons has a nice ring to it, and I found out my built-in Mac mic is better than my phone, so hopefully I'll have better audio. Anyway, let's get into it. So first, why do people seem to hate the comical Chris Pratt as our main man Mario? Well, the common criticism is that it's just Chris Pratt's regular voice, and many are upset that Charles Martinet isn't Mario. And while I can see where most people are coming from, there is so much contradicting this. Now look, even I was confused the first time I heard it.
I will admit, the first time I said it sounds great was just excitement from the previous scene bleeding over.
But I digress. Anyway, call me crazy, but I think the marketing team behind the main trailers might be purposefully picking dialogue that sounds like his regular voice to capitalize on Pratt's popularity. In trailers, it's common to use audio in early takes that never end up in the final product. In fact, literally every other piece of promo material that aren't the main trailers has something good about the voice, but I'll get into that a bit later, for the sake of keeping my points organized. Right now, let's study Charles Martinet's original Mario voice, and I'll explain why the original voice isn't the right decision for a full film. Let's begin. Take this from me, who actually wants to get into voice acting. The way I see it, there are three main techniques involved in every voice, some of which can be interchangeable depending on your character. The first being what I call form, the way you shape the muscles in and around your mouth and throat, which can make the difference between Kermit the Frog
And SpongeBob.
The second being your pitch, how you move your actual voice higher or lower, which can make the difference between Mario
And Wario,
and the third being accents and inflections, things like Mario's iconic Italian accent, or how Gollum from Lord of the Rings doesn't say
Tricky fat hobbits.
but rather
Tricksy fat hobbitses.
good subtle inflections can make the difference between a good impression and a spot-on one. Keeping this in mind, if we look at Charles's Mario voice, we see that it's extremely exaggerated on both accents, inflections, and pitch. He has the thick Italian accent, and his voice pitch is constantly bouncing between falsetto and about the middle of the average vocal range. Combine the two, and all of a sudden, it's a me, Mario! And as perfect as this particular performance is, with all the added exaggeration and inflections in both the accent and the pitch with nothing to balance it out, it would absolutely be grating for an hour and a half. Compared to the other voices currently in the film, distracting even. Now, I do love when Mario does talk, but the voice is just better in short bursts or comments. Think Super Mario Sunshine, whenever Mario says,
I'm beat. Aren't I done yet? There's more? Another door? Hello, door.
Similar to the voice, cinnamon tastes wonderful, but a spoonful can choke you. However, the counter-argument against this is, well, just have Charles tweak the voice. And while there could very well be some truth to that, how much do you have to tweak the voice to where it isn't obnoxious for long durations of time, but still recognizably the Mario we know and love? Take away too little and it's obnoxious. Take away too much and it's no longer recognizable. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not doubting Charles's talent. If they could find a way to make it work, I would love that. Probably more than Chris. I say probably for reasons I'll get back to later on. Anyway, I just don't know if it's possible until I hear it. For all we know, they could have tried the original or a modified version of the voice earlier on in production and it just didn't fit what they were going for. I mean, he is still in the movie, that shows they still cared enough that they wanted him involved in some capacity. And even though Pratt's voice is so drastically different from Martinet's, personally, I'd still rather have a new take on the character than a Charles that feels off just enough that it's uncanny, or Chris doing a cheap imitation. Now, with that out of the way, next I'd like to point out why hating on Chris is slightly hypocritical. To start, nobody was upset or questioned why Kenny James wasn't playing Bowser. Instead, everyone was raving about Jack Black, and rightfully so. He is killing it. Easily the best fit. Nobody's complaining Samantha Kelly isn't playing Peach or Toad, and people are fine with her voice, even though it's just Anya Taylor-Joy's voice with an American accent. Her controversy only comes from people who think Peach is woke for being a good leader instead of just, "Save me, Mario!" Heck, even Charlie Day, who's playing Luigi, is getting outright praise for his performance, even though he's using his regular voice just as much as Chris Pratt is for Mario. Don't believe me? Let's compare, shall we?
I know every human being with a mustache wearing an identical outfit with a hat with the letter of his first name on it!
Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I looked in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia!
But wait, why is that? People loving Charlie but hating Chris? Well, I think it comes down to two things. Number one, even though Luigi has a distinct voice like Mario, it isn't nearly as exaggerated. It is more or less a normal vocal range and has more of a focus on a slight form technique. And because both DeLuigi and Martin A. Luigi share that vocal range as opposed to the Marios, it still feels familiar. So it's easier to forgive the lack of an Italian accent. Mario's voice, on the other hand, has a very exaggerated pitch technique, as I stated earlier. Number two, Charlie Day, in this one line, perfectly captures Luigi's personality. That sort of timidness and nervousness, which, by the way, his natural voice just fits that type of character, which helps even more even though he sounds nothing like Martin A's Luigi.
Yay for me, Luigi!
And to go back to that probably I said earlier, about loving Charles more than Chris, if Charles voiced Mario, he would have to voice Luigi. Because I think we can all agree that it would be really weird to have Italian Mario and Brooklyn Luigi. Also proving my point about what I said earlier, saying that if Mario had his video game voice, it would be distracting compared to the other actors. Consistency is very important. Anyway, Mario never really had much of a personality. He's more or less a blank slate, so when you change something as iconic as the voice without leaving much familiar to hold on to, it's even stranger. Which segues into my next point. People claim that it doesn't feel like Mario. Well, I'd argue it does. People just aren't digging deep enough. Allow me to explain. Now, you might be quick to shout,
If it isn't obvious that it feels like Mario, then clearly the voice is bad.
no, this isn't the case. If you remember what I said earlier, I think it's possible that marketing is purposefully selecting clips that sound like Pratt to focus on his fame. On a side note, many say that his acting in the trailers feels flat. Rest assured, he's putting effort into this performance. Look at this.
The Mushroom Kingdom!
So this is not a dream? Ah!
That hurt, right?
Yes!
Definitely not a dream.
And really, has Pratt ever had a bad performance in anything he's played? He was amazing in the Lego Movie, he was amazing as Peter Quill. Why would he start here? Moreover, the voice feels like Mario, it's just more subtle. His voice, albeit more tame, actually follows the pitch technique of Charles Martinet. Here, I'll actually compare some clips of both Marios to show you what I'm talking about. Starting with the line, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come, we don't actually have a clip of Charles to compare this to, so I'm actually going to try with my own impression. You can take this with a grain of salt, but I truly believe it would sound something like this.
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come!
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come! Now, on to more plausible ones that actually have comparisons. There's inflection in the way he yells.
Oh wow, love these pipes!
And I'm gonna get called such a nerd for this. This McDonald's commercial.
Wahoo! Yeah! Yeah! Hello!
Hello.
Oh yeah!
Whoa! Hoo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, yahoo!
Nerd!
And finally, here at the end of the second trailer. This laugh is what fully sold me on Chris Pratt. It's a perfect blend between Pratt and Martinet. and it had a hand in what prompted me to make this video. After hearing this, I can see why Pratt was picked. Now, this specific part has less to do with the voice itself, but going back to something I mentioned earlier, I said Mario never really had much of a personality. Take note that I didn't say he doesn't have any personality. Throughout the games, we only really see his jolly demeanor with an air of confidence in the occasional spin-off or Smash Bros. Game. And if you study Mario in the various parts of the promo material, you'll see they've nailed it. The jolly demeanor isn't very prominent due to focusing on Mario taking in his new surroundings, but it's in a few places, like in the aforementioned McDonald's commercial.
Wahoo! Yeah, hello! Oh yeah!
Here when he's bumping Luigi's fist, and when he gives the wahoo at the end.
Wahoo!
That confidence, on the other hand, is everywhere. Like when he's gearing up to fight Donkey Kong.
Let's go.
When he's examining this kitchen sink. Getting ready for Peach's training course.
I got this. No problem.
And flying in the Tanuki suit. So yeah, this take does have that Mario energy. However, going back to the voice itself, there's something I need to talk about. There's a certain part of Mario's new voice I haven't touched on yet. Something that goes so far back into Mario's history that I never would have guessed we'd ever see it again. But first, something needs to be addressed. You see, even though Charles Martinet is the iconic voice for Mario, and loved by millions, including myself, for the movie, Pratt's direction is more ideal than Martinet's.
Well, time to round up a mob.
Wait, I can explain! Now, look, I know literally all of you are asking,
Colt, what the heck are you smoking? And where can I get some?
Hear me out. First, I need to point out some of you may or may not remember that Charles was actually the one to come up with Mario's iconic voice.
Italian plumber from Brooklyn. Hey, how you doing? Don't bother me, all right? I'm working here. Get out of here. And I thought, I don't want to do something that is going to be mean if there are kids there. So I thought, well, what else could I do? I said, I could do this guy, Gremio, and Taming of the Shrew, this play that I did a few years. Nice Italian guy. Talk like it is, I guess I could just make something up, and I don't know what, and all of a sudden I heard action, and I looked at the camera, and the voice hears it. Hello, I'm Mario. Okie dokie, let's make a pizza pie together.
The high pitch and Italian accent were actually never considered for Mario until Charles showed up and stole the show. In fact, the original vision for Mario's voice was drastically different. But wait, if Charles isn't the ideal voice direction, what is? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to before Charles even entered the scene. We have to go back to the 1980s.
Hey, paisanos! It's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
Back in the 1980s, the CEO of animation company Deep Enterprises, Andy Hayward, saw the immense success of Super Mario Bros., approached Nintendo and said, hey, we see how popular Mario is, we want to make a TV show. And at first, Nintendo declined, but after about a year, he managed to convince them. So, Nintendo set some ground rules. This is what the characters should look like, use material from the first two games, Mario and Luigi are Italian plumbers from Brooklyn, so on and so forth. And so, to play the brothers, they settled on professional wrestler Lou Albano for Mario, and actor Danny Wells to play Luigi. Yeah, Chris Pratt doesn't seem so crazy now, huh? And this is the voice they settled on.
If food isn't pasta, it doesn't count!
A Brooklyn accent with bits of Italian thrown in here and there. And what do you know, Mario still has that jolly demeanor with an air of confidence this early on too, which is quite impressive. So yeah, this is the original vision for Mario's voice. In fact, every voice for Mario before Charles went this direction, like Walker Boone.
Sheesh, Dockland gives me the creeps! That's because it's filled with them!
Bob Hoskins in the original 1993 Dumpster Fire.
Come and get it, lizard breath!
And, of course,
Nice of the princess to invite us over for a picnic, eh, Luigi?
Now, what does this have to do with the movie? Well, some have noticed Mario has a Brooklyn accent.
Oh, okay, so these bricks are just floating here?
And if we look at the trailers, there is evidence that the brothers are from Brooklyn in this movie. Hey, so I'm just gonna pause here for a minute. Can we do that? Literally while I was in the middle of the editing phase for this video, they dropped the Super Bowl ad, which is a commercial for their in-universe plumbing business, which just so happens to be a remix of the Super Show intro. I can't believe it. The Mad Lads actually did it. And guys, like, there's a website you can go to which advertises that they're now serving Queens and Brooklyn. This isn't from leaked posters, this isn't from analysis, this isn't from speculation. Nintendo, Illumination, whoever sees this, go to the person who pitched this idea and give him the fattest raise of the century. Don't you just love it when you're proved right? There is evidence that the brothers are from Brooklyn in this movie, like this modern-looking bathroom sink, the bros standing in front of this brick building, and in these posters with references to Brooklyn in both. It makes more sense narratively to lean in this direction. I mean, seriously, if you have a guy who's born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, is it gonna make more sense for him to sound like this?
Hello, I'm Mario. Okie dokie, let's make a pizza pie together.
Or this?
Oh, okay, so these bricks are just floating here?
So what Nintendo and Illumination seem to be doing is striking a middle ground between the original voice for Mario and the iconic one, having Mario speak with a Brooklyn accent whenever there's extensive dialogue,
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come!
and doing the grunts and noises in the style of Charles Martinet from the video games.
Oh yeah!
Which is admittedly a stroke of genius. And now, I like to talk about my final point. Now, look, I know if I asked why they picked Chris Pratt, the #1 response would be the star power. But I'm not asking why they picked big-name celebrities. I'm asking why they picked Pratt particularly. Something I pointed out in my first video is that the actors fit their roles. Jack Black fits Bowser. Charlie Day fits a natural-sounding Luigi. Keegan-Michael Key is a really good Toad, even though it did something we'd never seen before. All of these are new takes that still have the heart of the characters. And if we look at Chris Pratt's natural voice, which is admittedly integrated into Mario's voice, just like Luigi, mind you, this may be more of an opinion, but I'd argue it does fit a more grounded take on Mario. His natural voice range is about in the middle, which is good for a middle to high pitch technique. Mario's voice is just dialed down compared to the Mario we're used to, meant to feel more like a natural voice for a regular guy, which Mario is narratively, rather than an Italian Mickey Mouse, because, let's face it, that's the game's voice in a nutshell. Besides, if they didn't pick Pratt, what celebrity would you have picked? Seriously, I am not saying he's perfect, but who could believably play a version of Mario? Not Chris Evans, not Paul Rudd, and, of course, none of the other actors in the Mario movie could fit Mario. And Pratt is taking the role seriously. Just look at all of the comments he's made about the role on social media. Not to mention all of the method acting he's done. He waited to play Mario until he was middle-aged, he's worked a blue-collar job, he's tamed dinosaurs, he's even traveled through space! Please laugh. And look, we know Nintendo. Remember Bowser's cameo in Wreck-It Ralph? Disney approached Nintendo about putting him in the scene with a demo. They were afraid Nintendo would say no. You know what Nintendo said? Do you? Make him taller, and Bowser is holding his cup the wrong way. He would hold it like this, and then Nintendo showed them the proper way in excruciating detail. With that in mind, do you really think they're going to mess up their flagship character in his own movie? Do you really think Miyamoto would have approved him if he didn't think it fit Mario in some way? If you said yes to either question, you clearly don't know Nintendo. And why on earth would literally every other voice be spectacular except the main character? Give them a chance before jumping the gun. The movie is not even out yet. Sorry, rant over. But look, I'm not the only person who thinks it's good. Here's a clip from the channel Beat 'em Ups.
Scene is actually what sold me on Chris. There's two parts here. Listen. I'm actually really impressed. I think he nailed that. Listen to this first laugh. It is such a nice blend of Chris and Charles. I dare you at home to do a better Mario laugh than what Chris just did.
Johnny Razor.
Chris Pratt as Mario is actually a good pick. Mario is from New York and fell through a warp pipe to end up in the Mushroom Kingdom. So if he sounds like the average New Yorker, that makes sense with the story. Mario's voice is just a lot. So for the sake of a better viewing experience, Mario needs to have a much more tame and, I guess, relatable voice, like in the old Mario cartoons.
And there are plenty more people not even mentioning the comment sections. And some people aren't fully on board all the way, and that's fine, but they're willing to give him a chance. That's what's important. We are too used to Charles. It's okay to have a new take. Pratt's not replacing him in the video games. Let me be clear by saying that by making this video, I am not supporting the act of replacing every voice actor with a big celebrity. In fact, I'm very much against that. We shouldn't base all of our opinions on one negative aspect, this being that a celebrity's playing Mario. In fact, as a longtime Mario fan, I'm quite miffed at the fact that a good portion of the people who are supporting Charles Martinet aren't doing it out of respect for Charles as a voice actor and for voicing the character for more than 2 decades. It's out of toxicity and disrespecting Chris Pratt just because, oh, they got a celebrity to play Mario, so now the world's gonna end. In the end, I think the general conclusion will be that we were too hard on Chris. Some might switch to liking the voice, some might keep disliking it. And you know what? If you don't like the voice, that's a perfectly valid opinion. After all, it is very different from what we're used to. Everyone has their preferences. However, if you are outright calling it bad, like that's a fact, after everything I've just talked about, well, don't make me tap the sign. Don't say something is bad and call it an opinion. Saying you think or believe something is good or bad is an opinion. Saying the state of something is good or bad is a matter of fact. The point I'm trying to get at is, don't take your opinions and present them as fact. Because even though he's not perfect, and maybe nobody wants to admit it, Chris Pratt's Mario voice is better than you think. Anyway guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. This is my biggest video project yet. I also want to give a huge thanks to my sister Nikki for making that amazing thumbnail. I think she did a spectacular job. I've been crafting this since late November, and it's taken me 3 long months to finally see this project come to life. This is probably my last Mario movie video, other than my general thoughts thus far, before it actually comes out. And please, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And if you know someone else who might enjoy this, please be sure to share it. And hey, be sure to leave a comment. Am I correct or crazy? Is my opinion objective, or does it get a big oof? I want to make more essay-like videos somewhat along this line, but I also want to make videos that give the cartoon part of my name its purpose. Anyway, remember that God made you special and he loves you very much. Bye-bye!